I've been driving trucks for over 20 years, and you know, after that long on the road, you feel like you've seen it all. I've driven through storms, broken down in the middle of nowhere, been held up by some real shady folks, you name it. But there's one stretch of road that I'll never forget. It's the one that shook me to my core and made me question if I even wanted to stay in this business. This was about 3 years ago. I had a tight schedule, had to haul a load of construction equipment from Texas to Nevada. There's this one route, a back highway. Almost nobody takes it unless they're in a hurry like I was. It cuts through miles of desert, no rest stops, no gas stations, just miles and miles of nothing. Truckers call it the Devil's Highway. I'd heard rumors, stories about people disappearing or strange things happening, but you know how it is. Truckers like to talk, exaggerate things. I didn't buy into it. I was about 8 hours into my shift when I hit that stretch. It was around midnight, pitch black outside except for my headlights cutting through the night. I kept my radio on, but the static started kicking in. No signal out there. It was just me and the road, and that's when things started feeling off. You ever get that feeling like someone's watching you? It doesn't make sense because you're alone, but it's there, heavy in the air. I brushed it off, kept driving, and about an hour in, I saw something up ahead. Just a small red light flickering, almost like taillights. I slowed down, figuring it was another trucker. As I got closer, I realized it was a car, an old beat-up sedan parked on the side of the road with its hazards on. There was a guy standing next to it, waving me down. Now, I'm not one to leave someone stranded, especially out here in the middle of nowhere. I pulled over a few yards ahead and stepped out. "Hey, you all right?" I called out. The guy was young, mid-20s maybe, and he looked rattled. He told me his car broke down, something with the engine, and asked if I had a phone or could give him a ride to the next town. Now, I don't know what it was, but something about him didn't sit right with me. I couldn't put my finger on it. Maybe it was the way he avoided eye contact, or maybe it was the fact that I hadn't seen another car in hours, and suddenly, here he was, in the middle of nowhere. But against my better judgment, I told him to hop in. I figured I'd drop him off at the next stop, wherever that was, and be on my way. So he gets in, sits down, and we're driving in silence for a while. I tried making small talk, asking him where he was heading and what happened with his car, but his answers were short, almost robotic. He kept glancing over at me, which made me uneasy. The further we drove, the more the air in the cab felt tense, like something was about to happen. Then, about 20 minutes in, he asked me something that sent a chill down my spine. "Have you ever picked someone up out here before?" I hesitated, not sure where he was going with that. "Once or twice. Why?" He didn't answer, just stared ahead at the road. The silence stretched on, and I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. Something was wrong. Every instinct in my body was telling me to pull over and get him out of my truck, but before I could do anything, he spoke again, his voice low and cold. "You shouldn't have stopped." I glanced over, and his whole demeanor had changed. He was gripping his seat, and his eyes were wide, wild. I felt a lump form in my stomach, my hands gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I was in the middle of the desert, with no cell signal, no backup, and this guy was giving off every warning sign imaginable. "What do you mean by that?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his jacket, and I swear to God, I thought he was going for a weapon. My heart was racing, adrenaline kicking in. I had to do something. Before he could move any further, I slammed on the brakes, hard. The truck screeched to a halt, and the guy lurched forward, slamming into the dash. I didn't even wait. I threw open my door, jumped out, and grabbed the tire iron I keep under my seat. "Get out of my truck," I yelled, ready for a fight. He sat there for a second, dazed, and then slowly got out, holding his hands up. "Hey man, I didn't mean anything by it. Just relax." I wasn't buying it. I kept my distance, tire iron in hand, while he backed away into the darkness. He turned and started walking back the way we came, disappearing into the night. I jumped back in the truck and took off, not looking back once. My heart was still pounding, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just dodged something really bad. I don't know what that guy was planning, but I wasn't about to stick around and find out. For the rest of the trip, I couldn't get that guy's face out of my head, the way he looked at me like he knew something I didn't. I didn't sleep for days after that, and to this day, I still think about what could have happened if I hadn't stopped him. I've been back on that highway since then, but I don't stop anymore, no matter what. You ever been on the road and felt like something wasn't right? Like the whole drive just felt off, but you couldn't quite put your finger on it? That's what happened to me, man. I've been a trucker for almost 15 years now. I've seen just about everything you can see out there. Drunk drivers, reckless teenagers trying to race, bad weather, animals darting across the highway, you name it. But this was different. It was about 2 years ago, and I was doing one of my usual long hauls through a big city, around 2 or 3 in the morning. That's my favorite time to drive. The roads are clear, and it's just me, the truck, and the open highway. No traffic, no noise, just the hum of the engine. I always felt at home in the truck, you know? But this one night, something didn't sit right with me from the start. I was driving through this part of town with a bunch of overpasses. I'd been through there a few times before, but never this late. There's always some construction going on, lanes closed off, big road signs, the usual mess. I had my radio on low, just kind of zoning out, thinking about how much further I had to go when I saw something up ahead. At first I thought I was seeing things. There was a figure standing on the overpass, just barely lit up by the highway lights. Now you don't usually see people hanging out on an overpass in the middle of the night, right? But I figured maybe it was some drunk, or someone waiting for a ride or whatever. I didn't think much of it at first, but as I got closer, I saw them move, like they were shifting or reaching for something. That's when I started to get this bad feeling in my gut. I slowed down a bit, just in case, and that's when it happened. The guy, I swear, I saw it clear as day. He threw something off the overpass. A big chunk of something. Concrete, a rock, I don't know. But it was heavy. It came crashing down right in front of the truck ahead of me. The truck swerved hard, tires screeching, trying to avoid it, but it was too late. The whole thing flipped onto its side, skidding across the highway, sparks flying everywhere. My heart was pounding in my chest. I slammed on my brakes, barely managing to stop before I hit the wreckage. I was shaking, man. I grabbed my CB and called it in, telling anyone on the road to steer clear, but I couldn't stop staring up at that overpass. The guy, or guys, I don't know, they were gone. Just like that. The cops showed up pretty quick, but there wasn't much they could do. The driver of the other truck, he didn't make it. The debris had shattered his windshield and the truck rolled when he lost control. It was brutal. And the guy on the overpass vanished. No one saw anything. No one knew anything. The police didn't seem too shocked, though. One of them told me, real quiet, that this wasn't the first time something like this had happened. Apparently, a couple of truckers had been in accidents on this stretch of highway over the last few years, all late at night, all from debris being tossed off overpasses. But no one had ever caught the people doing it. They thought it was some kind of sick game. I couldn't let it go after that. Every time I drove that route, I'd be scanning the overpasses, watching for any movement. And the more I looked into it, the more I found out. There were rumors, stories truckers passed around at stops, about a group of people who did this on purpose, like, for fun. Targeting truckers because we're easy to spot from a distance, easy to mess with. Some of the old-timers called them overpass hunters. I thought it was just a twisted urban legend at first, but after what I saw that night, I wasn't so sure anymore. I got obsessed with it. I started setting up cameras in my truck, dash cams, anything to catch them in the act. I even considered driving that same route over and over again just to bait them out, but part of me was terrified I'd end up like that other driver. Every night, when I passed under those overpasses, I felt like I was being watched. A few months later, I heard about another incident. Another trucker had been hit, but this time they survived, barely. Same spot, same method. But again, no one was caught. It's like these people know exactly when and where to strike and how to disappear without a trace. To this day, I still take a different route whenever I can. I don't trust those overpasses anymore, and whenever I hear another trucker talk about a near miss or a wreck on that stretch of highway, it makes my skin crawl. I don't know if they'll ever catch the people behind it, but one thing's for sure. The scariest part of being a trucker isn't the weather or the long hours. It's knowing that out there on the road, there are people who want to hurt you just for the thrill of it. So yeah, if you ever find yourself driving late at night, passing under one of those overpasses, keep your eyes peeled. You never know who might be waiting.